how have you guys, in terms of unity and navigating, the mask issue or social justice or race or just any of the stuff that has bubbled up, politics, obviously.
Well, let me pause before we get into the formal things back to the church. I just want to just kind of just grab a hold of that real quick, what you brought up, and I really appreciate you just bringing that to the forefront. If you or anyone else has been paying attention to a lot of the headlines as they go past, you've seen a wake of destruction in the wider evangelical church over these past number of months. Some of it you could say they brought upon themselves. Some of it might have been started before the pandemic, but the net yield is all the same. There's a wide swath of devastation that has gone in within the leadership of the local church and the evangelical church specifically. And so part of my heart, my wife's heart, in terms of we have a heart to see that those things would continue to be addressed, not just from the pandemic, but would continue to be addressed effectively. One thing that I would say as a whole, the evangelical church we've done poorly on is really seeing that our pastors and our leaders are in a position of health and strength and ministering from a place of where they can be restored as necessary. And I don't mean just from quote unquote the big sins. I'm meaning just as far as the practicality of day-to-day life, that our pastors and our leaders, I think, are often put in positions and places where no one is caring for the shepherd, and there's not enough really been put forward to see that they can be leading from a place of strength. All the time I hear people want, oh yeah, we want a stronger church, we want stronger influence for the gospel, and in the end I'd say, you want a stronger church, well then you need a stronger leader. And if you want a stronger leader, then you need to see that they're positioned to lead and to love out of a powerful, restorative, life-giving influence. And the only way that that's possible is if there is at least some greater intentionality, which is at least what has been really on my heart more recently, my wife's heart. We both actually come from, not only have we been in full-time ministry ourselves now for 27 years, we both come from full-time ministry homes. So I grew up as a second generation. Yeah. So I grew up as a PK. She grew up as an MK. Together we were TO, theological offspring. And then now we've had our kids. So I guess, that goes even further. And it's just like, man, so I think we are at least mildly familiar with the challenges that come from that. A tremendous place of privilege and something I would never, ever, ever change. Regardless, but it also comes with a very unique set of pressures and difficulties that we as a wider church, I think, need to say, yes, I'm willing to do something about that. And so, some things that my wife and I have been dreaming and working towards as far as what do we do to really see that we can effectively network pastors together in a place that they are safe in which to share. What can we do to see that some of the coaching issues that maybe perhaps need to be identified or dealt with, both either in the home or in the church? And what can we do to just simply provide space for, sometimes it's interesting. I talked with this one gal. She's a young single gal, actually now, she just got married and now even has a little kid of her own. But she was speaking of the years growing up when her dad was a pastor who is no longer a pastor. And when I talked to her, I said, tell me about, as far as for, your dad and some of those transitions there, especially at the end, were kind of difficult. What was that like for you? And she said, my dad was just a great leader. And I think he could have made it if someone just would have given him a break. But no one would give him a break, and it's just like, man, it's like, oh, that is so, I think, such a deep, convicting thing for the wider church, that we have somehow created an atmosphere where that wasn't okay for at least that pastor to take a break.